HCAM TV thanks you for watching this presentation. We'd love for you to become a member and use your creativity at our station. Please visit hinghammedia.org or call us at 781-836-5094 if you'd like to learn more.
You are watching Jack and Si's Big Five.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Jack and Si's Big Five. Today we have a lot to talk about, including both local and national baseball and football topics. Starting with the NFL, in the wake of the injury to quarterback Ryan Tannehill, the Miami Dolphins have signed veteran signal caller Jay Cutler, bringing him out of retirement. Simon, what's your reaction to this signing, and is this one-year rental a smart move for the Dolphins?
Jack, this is a fantastic move for us Patriots fans who get to play this guy twice a year. For me, I feel like it's just shocking how, with Jay Cutler, what Miami fans are optimistic about with this deal is that he played under Adam Gase, who was his offensive coordinator when he was with Chicago in 2015, and Jay Cutler had his most successful year statistically. So we've seen an 11-year career, which has been underwhelming, to put it nicely, in 11 years. In that top year where he had Adam Gase as his OC, the team was 6-9 in 15 starts that he had, and the Chicago Bears were ranked 23rd among passing efficiency. So if that's what his height is, I don't care what type of familiarity you have with Jay Cutler, the quarterback. If you're Adam Gase, I don't think you should have pulled this trigger. It's honestly laughable, but you almost feel like there are names like Tim Tebow thrown out there and RG3. They might have deserved this shot just as much as Jay Cutler, for that simple fact that as productive as he's been and how much arm talent he has, he's simply not a winner. And that goes back to him being a lethargic, disengaged guy, doesn't really care for other teammates' success. And at age 34, you know that's not changing. He is who he is. It's set in stone. It's known. And so I don't think the Dolphins should have taken this chance coming off a playoff year with a good roster.
Absolutely. I think it's a young roster. They were on the incline, especially with a young quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. And everything was starting to fall into place for him. He was playing really well towards the end of the season last year, and it was a very unfortunate injury. However, if you look at the quarterback market right now, he is about the safest bet you could get. As you mentioned, Robert Griffin III is a very injury-prone quarterback. Tim Tebow has not played in the NFL in multiple years. And the other option that was thrown out there was Colin Kaepernick, and he has a lot of ties down in South Florida that could have been a distracting situation. He's been a real mess over the last year or so. So I think if you want to go for, you know what you're going to get, Cutler's the guy, but in terms of the team success, I can't see them being a very successul team. I see him taking a step back. He's not the kind of guy you want to get you over the hump, and it's only a one-year deal, and to put things worse, he's aging too. In a division with the Patriots only improving, it looks like the Dolphins are going to be no better than 8-8 to me, probably even less.
Yeah, and for anyone who says Jay Cutler does have this, that the Chicago Bears are a very poorly run organization up at the top, maybe second worst only to Cleveland. But I don't want to hear any excuses about what Jay Cutler had in terms of weapons over his career. He had Brandon Marshall in his prime. He had Alshon Jeffrey. He had Martellus Bennett. He had Matt Forte at running back. He had no excuse not to win. He's 1-1 in his career in the playoffs, just one playoff appearance, and in an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl, he had an injury where he was riding on a bike during the game, and then after the game that following Monday and Tuesday was seen walking on the street completely healthy. So this guy just doesn't have a drive to win, and for that reason I don't think it's even worth touching him, when also you factor in that he, in his press conference today, made it very clear that his wife needed to convince him to play, that he was really ready to hang him up, ready to go into broadcasting actually. And so that shows you that his head has not been mentally preparing for a football season like it has been the past 11 years. So I don't see how there's any chance you take a chance on him.
Right, if you bring him out of retirement too, he had been not playing any football in recent months, and all of a sudden, right before the start of the season, you bring this guy into the fold again. One thing he does have going for him, he has one of the best arms in the league, so that didn't go away over 3 or 4 months.
Right.
But if you think about his mental capacity, it's always been very weak. And as you brought up, that chance to go to the Super Bowl, his teammates were really frustrated with the way he carried himself and didn't seem to even care. And he seemed to quit on the team in that game. And that's not a good sign going forward, especially at this age. He still has not matured. People don't respect him as a leader. and he's just never proven anything in terms of winning in the postseason either. So especially with the Patriots getting better in the division than they were last year, the Dolphins are really looking like they're going to have a down year this year, which is unfortunate because they're a young up-and-coming team outside of the quarterback position right now.
Yeah, I'd say for any fans who analyze Jay Cutler, do not be fooled by any players who want safety and security with their team talking highly of Jay Cutler and his character and that he's a good locker room guy. Don't believe it, because we've seen over and over again, it's just clear to see in game. You see guys like Derek Carr and Jameis Winston, young guys who, when they're off the field and the defense is on, they're engaged with their teammates, going through plays, going over the playbook. Where do you see Jay Cutler sitting alone by himself, not engaged, not caring for teammate success, being a guy that's mental focus is getting his check and going home, essentially. And so that's has to be recognized when talking about this signing.
Yeah, we've been seeing this for years. In cold weather games, he'll just go sit by himself, put on a coat, and just sit on the bench the whole time, while guys like Brady or, as you said, Derek Carr up at trying to go on the phone, talk to their coaches,
right.
Watch the defense, encourage the rest of the team, and always trying to do things that can help them win the game. Cutler is only focused on himself and is just not a good teammate. And people of teammates such as Bennett and other people that played with the Bears with him have had nothing but negative things to say about him. So it's definitely not a good locker room thing for the team either, and especially a young team. He's not the kind of leader they need going forward as well.
Yeah, last thing, we'll touch on the New England Patriots later. I think it's incredible how easy it's going to be to win the AFC East this year. We'll get into that a little later. But we're going to move on, shifting gears to the Diamond in the MLB. There's a little under 2 months left in this MLB regular season, so the Boston Red Sox playoff push is really starting to heat up. The Sox are 12-10 since the All-Star break, currently up 3 games on arch rival New York Yankees, who are in second place. So Jack, with 50 games remaining in the regular season, how high is your confidence level in the Sox moving forward?
My confidence level is very high, actually. One of the most important things, though, coming up, we have another big series with the Yankees in about a week and a half, but that'll tell us a lot. But right now we're up 3 games. We've been playing really well lately, and we recently at the trade deadline really helped improve our depth of the roster. And we have some guys coming back from injury, as we just got Nunez, Holt back from injury, improved the bullpen. Brandon Workman, he's a veteran, so we now have some good bullpen relievers as well. And the team's been really clicking. All the young guys are healthy. Hanley Ramirez is starting to play well, and right now we have Dustin Pedroia out of the lineup too, and he'll be back soon too. So I think when we have everything together, we're probably the deepest team in baseball, if not one of them.
Yeah, I think the particular, I look at the Nunez signing, his ability to, outside of first base, play the whole infield and play the outfield, and he's a strong bat. In his debut, he had 2 home runs. He's been really productive at the plate, and that's been a huge get, especially, we talked about the Sox earlier in the show, and you alluded to the space at third base that's been so inconsistent. He can be the guy, assuming Bogarts and Pedroia are healthy, that can play third base come postseason when it's most critical. Brock Holt came back from injury. He's another guy who can play pretty much the whole field and has hit for the cycle in his career, so we know he's dangerous at the plate. And with the Sox, again, you just have to keep going back to, in a competitive American League, is the pitching inconsistency, and you're going to need to see continued good work by the starters. We saw back-to-back wins from Doug Fister, who was just brought on. He's a good, it's good that he's playing well. Chris Sale has got to continue his dominance, and Rick Porcellos to come around. So there are certain questions with starting pitching, but in terms of the bats, everyone's clicking in the field, and it looks like we're poised for a big playoff run.
Absolutely, and as you touched on the starting pitching, Price has been iffy with his injury status, but Pomerantz is also pitching really well lately, so that's a good thing. The pitching rotation looks a lot better than it was just a few weeks ago, and if all our young guys, Bogarts is starting to hit well again, Mookie Betts is playing well, so it looks like we have one of the deepest teams, and also another new third baseman. We just got the rookie. So now we have 3 guys, Devers. We have 3 guys that can play third now, and a couple weeks ago we had none. So that's really encouraging sign, because that was our biggest hole in the lineup for sure. And if you look at the Red Sox and think they're a young team, now with this experience we just pulled in, and we have a couple guys that have been in the playoffs before. You look at the Yankees, they're a really young team. Their best players have never been to the playoffs, so especially Judge and Sanchez. So they're even younger, so down the stretch, experience is a big thing for us too. Yeah,
beginning Saturday, that's a huge series to gain some ground in the AL East. Another big addition is also Christian Vasquez. He behind the plate. It's important when you're a catcher. That's a position that can be a lot of wear on you if you're catching consistently. And now the Sox have 2 viable options in him and Sandy Leon. And Vasquez, it's good to have him in sometimes just because Leon could be such a liability on the base pass.
Yep.
But outside of that, they're really strong in the field, and that's just a great reinforcement to have behind the plate, especially when we're talking about pitching inconsistencies. I think Vasquez is a guy who lifts up guys he catches for.
Yeah, he's been really coming into his own lately. He had the walk-off a couple of days ago, had a home run a few weeks ago, so he's really starting to swing the bat well, and I feel a lot more comfortable with him defensively than Leon as well,
Right.
and especially on the base paths, as you said. So I think he should be our starting catcher as he is right now going forward, and I think that's going to be a really great 1-2 punch if Sandy Leon could come in every few games, give a little offensive firepower. So that's going to be big going forward as well.
Indeed.
All right, so shifting gears now, back to college football. The college football coaches preseason top 25 has just been released, and there's some obvious favorites, some surprising snubs, and surprising inclusions in the poll. Simon, what is your reaction to the poll as a whole?
Well, someone who one team that stuck out to me is the Michigan Wolverines. They're in the top 10, and they have the least returning starters among the entire FBS in college football. They have 5 returning starters, and they have 1 on the defensive end. And as we know, Michigan, led by Jim Harbaugh, prides himself on tenacity on defense, the ability to create turnovers, and just have a stout defense. And their defense alone, with a lot of inexperienced offensive players, kept them in a lot of games. And to have 10 departures to a team is going to be really rough. And then on top of that, you look at their schedule. They opened the year playing Florida on a neutral site, I believe. That's not a guaranteed win. You play Ohio State, obviously, at the end of the year. They're very strong. And you go at Penn State and you go at Wisconsin. So there are 4 potential losses right there that aren't guaranteed. And I know Jim Harbaugh has certainly proved himself that it wasn't just a bunch of hype when he came into coaching. He really, wherever he goes, seems to have control of his players. As weird or quirky as his methods are, they certainly have worked. But this will be a big test for him because this is an inexperienced Michigan team. And another team that I think will overachieve in that same realm, 2 spots below, is the Big 12 Oklahoma State team led by head coach Mike Gundy and quarterback Mason Rudolph, who's certainly, you and I believe, a legit Heisman contender. He's a special dual threat quarterback who has a lot of ability, and a Big 12 offense is just going to put up a ton of production and yards. And their schedule is also favorable. They host Oklahoma, and that's, to me, the Big 12 that doesn't have a lot of depth. So that the fact that you get that Oklahoma game at home, and the fact that you've won out of conference game that's against a Power 5 and it's Pitt, so it's doable. So to me, I look at the top 25 and right around that 10 spot, 9-11, I say Michigan is overrated and watch out for Oklahoma State to compete for a playoff spot.
I agree. I think Oklahoma State can be one of the best teams in the country this year with Rudolph to Washington. I think that's the best duo in college football for quarterback to receiver. And going back to Michigan, I agree. I think this is going to be a rebuilding year for them, and I think before long they'll be one of the perennial title contenders, but it's tough to come in, take over a job that is a bunch of upperclassmen, and then lose them in year 3. Reminds me as a BC fan of Steve Adazio at Boston College in his 3rd year. It was all freshmen and sophomores playing for him after a very promising first 2 years. But as we saw the first year at Michigan with Harbaugh, they still went 10-3, and Harbaugh brought in a pretty average, possibly below average quarterback, and Jake Rudock, and they still went 10-3. And those guys the year before playing with Brady Hoke were not performing very well as players. So I could see him turning these new guys into pretty good players right away. But with Ohio State and Penn State having really deep rosters this year, I see them coming 3rd in the conference. And I think Ohio State, last year was a rebuilding year for them. They still went 11-1, and they bring back that whole defense basically and have a 5th-year senior quarterback, JT Barrett, who's sort of slumped over the last couple of years, but he's shown flashes and one of the career record holders at Ohio State. So if he has a bounce back year this year, I think Ohio State could definitely be one of the favorites. Florida State's another team that bring back experienced quarterback, experienced defense, and experienced roster overall. I think they might win the ACC this year. And I think Clemson jumps out as a team that's ranked a little high. They're still undecided on their quarterback, and they have to follow up the best quarterback in school history. So they also lost a lot on the offensive side of the ball. Mike Williams, Artavis Scott, Wayne Gallman. So that's a team that sticks out as me. They could lose a few early season games and have to go through a rebuilding year as well.
Yeah, Ohio State, obviously the polar opposite of Michigan's situation, bringing back so much. And defensive coordinator Greg Schiano recently said at training camp that who's bounced around the NFL as a coach said this is the best defensive front that he's ever coached. and Ohio State is led by 2 edge rushers in Sam Hubbard and Nick Bosa that are really powerful, can really get to the quarterback. And to have a front seven in college football, as you and I know, that can control a game, control the line of scrimmage is huge when you're talking about playing the big boys like Alabama and SC and teams of that nature in biggest games. So I think Ohio State definitely is a team that's going to win the Big Ten, be in the playoff, and have a legitimate shot to win the national title.
Definitely. And when you say Sam Hubbard, I feel like he's been a guy that's been impacting their program for 10 years now.
Right.
He's still there.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of experience on the defense especially. And then going back to another team that jumps out as me a little bit when I saw it was 5-7 last year. Texas is one of the teams that's in the top 25. And if you look at the rest of the poll, it was 9 wins, 10 wins, 11 wins, or 12 wins from last year. So they jump in there because it's a big powerhouse program with a new coach coming in. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly they can adjust with the new coach, because it seems like almost every year they're up at the top to start the season. And last year looked like it might be that breakthrough year. And once again, after a big win against Notre Dame, they faltered pretty quickly. So it'll be interesting to see how Tom Herman and Shane Buechele adjust to the new staff and the new players, the new recruiting class. So
yeah, that 22 ranking is a direct show of respect to Tom Herman, because wherever he's gone, from Ohio State to Houston recently, he's had plenty of success, maxed out his players' ability and his team's ability to win. But Texas, they've had their recruiting hasn't gone down. Their facilities continue to get better. And yet you see a season last year where they're 3-6 in the conference, including losing to the likes of Kansas.
Right.
It just boggles your mind that still Texas can continue to have prominent recruiting, prominent facilities, prominent fan base. All of that is still there, but the team production is not there. So there's a misnomer there between the program itself and its ability to do well. So we're going to move on to our next topic, sticking with the gridiron but shifting to the pros. With the start of the NFL season on the horizon, there's plenty of talk surrounding the hometown defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Fresh off a title and following up with improving both sides of the ball with various free agent signings and trades in the offseason. Many believe the Patriots can complete a perfect season this year. So, Jack, can the Patriots do the 72 Dolphins and go perfect?
Well, if there's a year to do it, this would be the year to do it. As Brady's continues to age, he just turned 40. We brought in a great supporting cast for him this year, and we just won the Super Bowl last year. So now there's Brandon Cooks, who's, I feel like, a perfect fit for this offense, a guy who's really fast, can go deep, but also, as Brady ages, it's probably a little easier for him to make the 15, 20-yard throws, and Brandon Cooks is perfect for that. He's a very versatile receiver. We also bring in Stephon Gilmore, and I think we have the best secondary in the NFL, at least corners-wise, Malcolm Butler. So I think it's the most well-rounded team we've had possibly since 2007. In that year we went almost 19-0, but it's just so much easier said than done. That team was so good and should have beat every team on the schedule, and there was almost a few close losses, and then finally we did lose to the Giants.
Right.
And then you always factor in towards the end of the season, Bill Belichick always rests his players in games against teams like the Bills or the Dolphins. At the end of the season, he'll only play Brady for a half, so anything could go wrong there. So do I think it's possible? Yes, but first of all, we have to incorporate these new pieces, so a few things could go wrong early in the season as we do that. And we always have to factor in the end of the season, is he going to play his best players the most? So it's going to be very difficult to do, but I think if there is a year to do it, it's this year.
Yeah, traditionally in any sport, especially professionally, after a team wins a title, you see a lot of departures, and the team kind of have to restructure because guys play well in the postseason, they get bigger contracts elsewhere that the championship team can't pay. And this is a rare situation where you see a team win the title and then, with almost no debate, win the offseason. Stephon Gilmore, you pay him a lot. And Malcolm Butler is also a guy who is the other corner who wants his money. I think Stephon Gilmore, people will say, oh, Malcolm Butler feels slighted and disrespectful and this could throw off his play. I think this will motivate Malcolm to say, I'm worth just as much of every penny as Gilmore is. So I think that's a great addition. Brandon Cooks, like you said, he's going to be Tom's first true vertical threat since Randy Moss, and obviously he's not as special as Randy Moss, not even close. But to have that vertical guy to complement the guys who mostly do the intermediate routes in Edelman, Amendola, and Hogan, that's huge. It just brings more of a balance to the offense. The Pats also added solid running backs in Mike Gillislee and Rex Burkhead, and we know that the Patriots always get their best out of running backs, so the departure of LeGarrette Blount is a tough one to see. but also on the offense, Dwayne Allen was at. He was instant offense from Indianapolis. So it seems like the Patriots are just vamping up, and usually we see Bill Belichick stockpiling draft picks, playing for the future. It seems like now he's in the mindset of, Tom just turned 40. Let's give the best product to the field we can now, because his window's not going to be that much. His window is closing, as much as Patriots fans don't want to admit it, at age 40, and who knows how much time he has left. He's putting the best possible product on the field for Tom. So.
I agree. The receiving core is absolutely ridiculous. If you look, we lost Martellus Bennett, but we signed Dwayne Allen, who's just as good. Gronk, if he stays healthy, people always forget about that.
Right.
Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, and Brandon Cooks now is just crazy to think about. So if you look at the schedule game by game, Malcolm Mitchell is a really emerging player too. And if you look at the schedule game by game, it literally looks like this team should not lose a single game. But as it's so hard to do, it's never been done 19-0.
Right.
The season was shorter back when the Dolphins did it, and it's never been done. We came the closest. So I think players are going to be not thinking about doing that. It's just going to happen as it goes. It can't be something that's in the minds of the players during the season. Belichick will make that happen. But yeah, it's one of the biggest things. Definitely going to be the first couple of weeks adjusting with the new roster, getting the new guys in place. But if they can win those games, the other thing is if you win the Super Bowl, you usually have one of the hardest schedules in the NFL. So that's another thing that could take a toll on us. But looking down the schedule, it looks like we should be better than every team.
Yeah, the AFC is obviously it seems like beyond the Patriots are head and shoulders above. Where in the NFC, it's pretty wide open and anyone can win. But I think the 19-0 talk, Patriots players will shut it down because this is the most talented team since 2008. And I think if Bill Belichick has one regret in his coaching career as the greatest coach in NFL history, it would have been to take it easy those weeks 14 through 17, resting more guys. If remember, ironically enough, playing the Giants in Week 17 of that year and scrapping to get a win, and it took it took everything. So the Patriots probably don't want to go through that methodology again if they are, let's say, 13-0, 14-0 in that latter part of the season. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Patriots handle this mindset. But in terms of on the field, it's the most talented team since the 2008 team that just came up short.
Definitely, and I think it's something that the players should not have on their mind, but it's definitely something that's achievable. Switching gears again, we go back to the MLB for our final topic of the day. The LA Dodgers just completed baseball's best 50-game stretch since 1912, compiling an astonishing 79-32 record. Obviously, nothing is certain in baseball, but how likely are the Dodgers to win the World Series this year, and what teams pose the greatest challenge?
I think I'm willing to go to say if I were a betting man, which I'm not, but if I were, I'd definitely bet on them winning the NL at least, not the World Series. But if you just look at the makeup of their team, back-to-back years now, they're going to have the Rookie of the Year. The way the Dodgers are building, they're just building the method of bringing up young players to a T. From Corey Seager last year to now Cody Bellinger. Those guys are absolutely stellar. And then you also talk about Justin Turner over at third base, leading the team in batting average and on-base percentage. Yasiel Puig is still in the outfield. He's a big star out there. And the pitching, everyone questions Clayton Kershaw's production in the postseason in terms of regular season, but he's one of the top. Him and Sale are right up there as the best pitchers in the game. And Yu Darvish was an excellent addition at the trade deadline. In his first start in just 7 innings pitched, he had 10 strikeouts. So he had been struggling up until that point, but it seems like the Dodgers, he's been revitalized and will start to really turn it up for LA here. So the only question is that the Dodgers have come up short in the postseason, but this year, 2 years ago, they ran into a juggernaut in the New York Mets that had really stellar pitching and was just an awesome team that just came up short in the World Series. And a year ago, that over 100-win Cubs team who was going for breaking the curse. It doesn't seem like the Dodgers in the NL this year have that type of challenger that's as good. So I think the NL is nearly a lock for LA, as good as they've been.
I agree. The Dodgers are definitely head and shoulders the best team in the NL right now, but if you look at the Cubs are starting to get it together, and it's virtually the same roster as last year.
Right.
So that's a team you can't sleep on. And also in the AL, we have the Red Sox and the Astros playing really well too. So those would be my top 3 challengers right there. And the Cubs have literally the same exact pitching staff too. They've just been a little down this year. But if they can get it together at the right time, they have a lot of playoff experience. So I could see that being a potential good series in the playoffs because pitching and defense wins championships. But looking at the roster right now, it's a really well put together team. They have a lot of young guys that are emerging players, and they have Puig is really starting to mature now.
Yeah.
And they have guys like Chase Utley who can be locker room leaders. So I think it's just a really well put together team. Guys are doing the right things and they're really clicking at the right time going into the end of the season. So especially with this addition of Yu Darvish to the pitching staff, they're a really dangerous team, probably the most dangerous team I've seen in a few years.
Yeah, I just saw a quote recently from Cubs star Anthony Rizzo, who pointed out, he said, we knew this run and getting it together would happen. So that indicates to me that the Cubs have just been kind of resting on their laurels a little bit because last year's title did take so much out of them. So they may be, at this point, the team has the mindset of, okay, it's August, it's time to charge up a little bit. So they're definitely a challenger, but I don't think they can match the Dodgers' firepower, and I think that the Dodgers also have more consistent pitching, and I also trust, unbiasedly trust their manager Dave Roberts more than I trust Joe Madden in terms of late game decisions, especially with pitching in the bullpen. And speaking of the bullpen, the Dodgers have one of the best closers in baseball in Jensen, who's really solid there. So top to bottom, between the pitching and the bats, the Dodgers look really solid, and I can't see them being stopped in the NL.
I can see that too. I just think the biggest thing in the playoffs, though, in a 7-game series, you just got to win 4 games, and it can come down to a few guys having really good starts, and the Cubs have 4 guys that can go out there and give you a shutout, especially Lester, Arrieta, Lackey at times, but he's having a rough year this year. But the pitching wins championships, and I think the addition of Darvish was huge because if they didn't have him, that's been one of their biggest problems in the postseason, especially because Kershaw tends to struggle in the postseason. He did have one really great game against the Cubs last year, but he has not proven himself to that level yet. So that's a huge, huge addition, and with their lineup, I think they'll be able to keep pace with anyone in the league. So to me, they are the heavy favorites to win the NL, at least at this point. And the AL, there's a couple challenges there.
Yeah.
And baseball, we saw last year, as great as the Cubs were, that series went 7 games to extra innings in Game 7. So anything can happen in the World Series for sure.
Yeah, the Cubs had the better roster, and still Cleveland, due to coaching, proper game planning, was able to overcome that. And so although the Dodgers may have the best talent, if the Sox or Astros outplay them, like you said, just for 4 games, it can certainly happen. So I wouldn't say the Dodgers are a lock for the title just yet.
Yeah, a series is completely different than just a regular season stretch of games because it's just locked in for, it's just like any other sport, just locked in for a few games. Anything can go wrong, anything can go right for another team, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself down 2 games to nothing or 3 games to nothing. So you got to be really precise, and teams play their best baseball in those games. Teams aren't trying out different players, different positions, and one of the biggest things is health too. A lot of teams have struggled at the end of seasons because not being healthy, or teams get the right, like the Red Sox seem to be hitting their stride right now at the healthiest point. So anything can happen at that time of year.
Definitely. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. We have only a couple episodes remaining for the summer, so make sure to check it all out. Coverage you can find at Hingham Media YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
You are watching Jack and Size Big Five.